purpose of promoting peace. In the Christian Bible, blessed are the peacemakers. I would also add these words of Jesus: you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. I thank you.
Mr. Ron Scott from the Detroit Coalition Against Police Brutality.
I'm also serving a dual function here because I'm also here as a board member, executive board member of the National Lawyers Guild. On behalf of the Detroit Coalition Against Police Brutality, we issued a statement shortly after the death of Imam Luqman, who many of us knew. We issued that and we said basically at that particular time we joined, which what CAIR-MI is doing now. We called for an independent investigation, as we do in terms of all police shootings, since this was part of a joint terrorism task force, a multi-jurisdictional task force, which have used citizens' dollars essentially to provide a case, which we still know now, or we are finding out now, is not one of terrorism, but it essentially raises the question as to whether or not it's even one that has any particular matters that are germane to be prosecuted in relationship to criminal activity. And if there was criminal activity, certainly the setup more than likely was made by the very agency that led to the shooting of Imam Luqman. So we're calling for an independent investigation. We also, going further, we did say that an independent investigator regarding this matter should be done via the Justice Department, but that we should form an investigative body on our own that actually begins to augment what is being done. In the short statement, really, those who are involved in the policing cannot investigate themselves. They have to have something independent, because otherwise, why would they do what they do in the first place? We also like to say that in terms of what the National Lawyers Guild on a national basis, on a local basis, has called for the same judicious involvement in terms of looking into these matters, both legally and in terms of mobilizing the community to demand that this be done. We demand that Eric Holder, who will be here in the next couple of days, that he meet with the community, that he talk about these things, and that he involve himself in the resolution of these matters. In other words, Imam Luqman's family calls for it. Muslims across the board that we have seen have been placed in a sense of fear. And I might add this as one who's been a victim of the counterintelligence program of the 1960s, that this murder, this shooting, in fact, seems strangely reminiscent, ironically enough, coming up on December 4th, of the murder of Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party. And in effect, we see this as the counterintelligence program too. Mosques are being raided throughout this country. The First Amendment is being trampled on, and people's lives are being lost. So we're calling not only for an independent investigation, but we also augmenting that by saying that we have to be continually vigilant, and we have to challenge this in every way possible until justice is done for the family. And we thank CAIR for being allowed to be here today to join the chorus of people who are fighting for justice in this situation.
Grace Cotre, last name K-O-T-R-E, from the Interfaith Council for Peace and Justice. I have a short statement to read. As an interfaith organization, we believe that all life is sacred. We believe in the peaceful resolution of conflict and reject the excessive use of force against any of our brothers and sisters, especially those who serve as community and faith leaders. We stand with CAIR and our other allies here to call for a full investigation of Imam Luqman's death.
I really don't have much to add in addition to what everyone has said. Basically, I'm the attorney that's representing the family and representing the wife who has now been put in deportation removal proceedings from the United States to the country of Tunisia. I also represent the son that is also been charged with one of the charges under the indictment just last week. Again, I don't want to, as I say, beat the dead horse, but I want to echo what everyone has basically said here. We do need to see what this investigation reveals. I think it is only fair and just that the community and law enforcement, basically with all firms, both sides, that a fair and impartial investigation is conducted to see the results of that particular matter. I can tell you that the family, of course, is very much concerned, as any family would be that lost a loved one, and are basically looking for justice, as they feel that the charges levied against the one son are totally unfounded and without merit.
Sir, could you say spell your name, please?
Attorney Nabiyayad, N-A-B-I-H, last name A-Y-A-D.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll field some questions.
Okay, Mr. Scott, I'm hearing a lot of talk about trying to be impartial on this, but to quote your words, you referred to this as a murder. So, if any, I mean, in my mind, it's already determined that you've already claimed that this was a crime, not self-defense. Will any decision outside of saying that the officers involved, the agents involved, were guilty, will that satisfy you, based on what how you call this a murder?
Based on the scenario in terms of how this is done, you can characterize or mischaracterize what I stated as to how we put it.
You called it a murder,
No,
so
the
that's
thing
a
of it
crime.
is, the thing of it is that that may very well be a crime. But once we do the investigation, we'll find out the way it is. We'll find out whether or not the actual amount of shootings, the 18 times that Imam Luqman was shot, we'll find out whether or not that was valid via protocol, in terms of the FBI protocols. We'll find out whether or not, in effect, if you engage in an activity that sets individuals up to go and participate in an activity where they're encouraged to do something, whether or not that is a crime. We'll find out whether or not if you surveil and you, in fact, act undercover in mosques and places of worship for over 2 years and you place people in that, we'll find out whether that is a crime. We'll find out whether or not the actual circumstances that led to conspiratorial activities that led to the death of this individual, whether or not that is the case. Now, we can put it within the context of as we look at the law today, or we can look at it in the context of whether or not we look at it into the fairness of this investigatory process. And my statements were put in the context of how this investigatory process was engaged. It was engaged that ultimately led, something ultimately led to the death of Imam Luqman. But for those situations, there may never have been a death. And that's my point.
Mr. Imam Walid, could I ask, do you feel is there any connection between this attack on the Detroit Mosque and its leader and the recent U.S. seizure of, or pending seizure of assets of mosques across the country and other properties owned by Muslims?
To make any direct link between the civil action going against 4 mosques in other cities and the raids here and the death of Imam Luqman, to make any tangible connection would be merely conjecture on our behalf. We don't have any tangible proof in regards to that. However, we have been concerned for years, and this has been the grossest situation that we found so far, agent provocateurs and informants going to mosques for what many civil libertarians have dubbed fishing expeditions. And in this case, this type of investigative process led to ultimately the death of a human being. And we want to get, at the end of the day, we want to find out the circumstances behind the death. As the letter says itself, you know, there's talk in the community that we want verified. Some of the people who are actually at the scene have been released. We've heard statements third party, but we haven't talked directly to people there in regards to what happened. I mean, did Imam Luqman even brandish a firearm or point at a human being, or was he forced to pull out a gun after dogs were sicked on him and bit him, and in which he then shot them in self-defense, as a form of self-defense, shooting the dogs? These are questions that need to come out. Was the imam actually laying down and the dogs were biting him, or was he standing up or had to get up because dogs were biting him? I mean, did FBI agents say sic them or go get them or not? I mean, these are all questions that have to come out. So right now there's a lot of talk and discussion in the community. There's a lack of trust in the community. And ultimately, at the end of the day,